one thing that maybe makes me me is I don't really like taking no for an answer. I'll give no as an answer often enough, but I don't like taking no for an answer. And so whenever I see a challenge, particularly one that I think, a change would be really impactful to a people or a group of people or a system, I'm always looking for ways to deal with it, sort of to short circuit whatever obstacles there are. I do know the first time, at least, that I was really cognizantly aware of being able to have small input, big impact. And that was when I was in high school. My youth group often volunteered on Christmas Day to work at the hospital. Jewish youth group, don't celebrate Christmas, right? Bunch of Jewish kids. And we would basically, staff the front desk and do a lot of the pink lady, or whatever candy stripe lady, whatever they call them, jobs so that the regular volunteers could be home with their families. And that to me was, oh wow, big impact, one person or 5 people, big impact, 2 communities. One was the community of the people in the patients and their families who needed assistance on that day. And then the other community was the community of people who regularly volunteered or staffed these positions, right, to be at home with their families on that day. And so that was like, aha, you can actually have a big impact with very little, one person, handful of people, if you do it in the right place at the right time. City Hall Fellows is a nonpartisan national service corps for city governments. We basically take recent college graduates, America's best and brightest, turn them on to city government, teach them how local policy works, how the system actually works, and empower them to be lifelong local change agents. I've always been interested in government and policy and politics my whole life, as far as I can remember. Majored in political science in college, ended up getting a master's degree at the same time as my bachelor's degree, also in political science, studying comparative politics, but really looking at power systems and sort of how power flows. So not necessarily here's the structure, but where's the actual real power in various systems. There's a couple of different levels, I think, at which I'm trying to do this. One is the general level of human capital in cities. I don't care whether you're a big government or small government person. Everybody should agree that whether we have 10 government employees or 10,000, they should all be the smartest, most capable people possible working for us. There has been a real trend in the last 2-3 decades of our top talent going away from government, really shunning it in incredible numbers, such now that if you look at the demographics of city workforces, they're like upside down funnels where almost everybody's on their way out, age-wise, and you don't have a lot of people coming in who have come in the last 20 years. So on one level, I'm trying to seed the system with enough young people, enough young, motivated, talented, energized people in any given city that more people like them will want to go work there, right? Because if you talk to smart young people today and you read the surveys, one of the things that matters most to them about workplace is places where they can be effective, where they can work on teams of people like them, with people like them, with people that they respect and admire, and that's not sort of a bureaucratic process. There's a whole bureaucratic process in city government. That's not the game stopper. Unfortunately, a lot of the game stoppers, they don't see, and there may be people like them, but they don't see them, they don't know it, they don't understand that. So that's one level at which I'm trying to do it. On the individual level, it's really about empowering individuals, placing them in the right place, and giving them the context. And this really could apply to anybody, whether you're, work for the head of an agency or not. To me, the most important thing is having the context of how the system operates. How it got there, why it got there, all the different influencers that affect that, looking backwards and going forwards. Because if you can understand that context, then you can figure out the path to make change. That's what we do with our fellows with this training curriculum. It's over 300 hours long that we designed, that they meet weekly, and it really looks at giving them that context on a city level, and then they can adapt, apply that to their agency level, to their approach to city government, to their approach to the issues that they're dealing with on their job. Well, what prompted me to think this way in the first place about the context, it comes from my experience as a New York City urban fellow, now almost 14 years ago. 2 of my friends who were urban fellows were having lunch one day. We often all had lunch together, and they were chatting about what they were doing, as we often do. And one worked for the police department, one worked for the homeless service department. And the police department fellow was talking about how her department was going to do this particular raid or cleanup of the parks. And the homeless department fellow said, oh, that's interesting, I haven't heard about that. I imagine it affects the population that we serve. Went back to his office and was talking to his boss about it. They didn't know about it. There had been no communication. Because these two fellows happened to have lunch, they were actually able to communicate, raise this to the agencies, coordinate a response. So that got me thinking, you've really got to have this cross-pollination of the context. One of my recent alumni, that kind of, maybe a more recent example, she's a young woman out of Brown University. And when we placed her with the city's human resources department. And she would tell you the same story. She kind of said, okay, I know I said I would do this fellowship. I don't get human resources. I'm not interested in human resources. I'm a public policy person. This is not the thing, but, I'm going to take it on the chin and I'm going to do it. And ended up, she's still working for the city government. She ended up becoming an integral part of the city's workforce development plans. They had kickstarted this whole workforce development program. She took a key role in labor union negotiations and had this eye-opening experience about the role human resources plays in the rest of the work the city can do and how it actually is kind of behind the scenes of everything. Changed her perspective on what she does and how she does it. There's another young man out of our Houston program who spent his year as a fellow, came out of Stanford and spent a year as a fellow, wanting to go to law school. What he learned as a fellow was less specific to his job placement. He worked, I believe, for the police department that year. And it was more about how the local policy ecosystem works. So he came out thinking about, all right, this local policy ecosystem makes sense. There's some problems with it. He's now in the process of starting an online platform for local education policy, advocates, activists, and beneficiaries, so parents and students and that type of thing, as a platform to share ideas and to get really the local government and state government level folks paying attention to to the things that these particular groups want to do, sort of in a crowdsourcing way. That is a platform for him that he says could not have happened had he not gone through our program and gotten that inside look and context of how the system actually operates. So I think one is context. Understand the context for the issue that you want to address, the history, the people, whether there's if it's a government regulatory issues that are involved, how the money flows. And the way I break down local government for my fellows is rules, money, insiders, and outsiders. I think that can apply for any bureaucracy if you want to figure out what the history of an issue. So that's number one. Number two is the network. I think one of the most powerful things about my fellows and their ability to impact city government is each other, right? They know people in other agencies. They meet people in other agencies. We introduce them to people throughout the city, both inside and outside of government. I think in any bureaucracy, people tend to get siloed, and it's easy to get siloed. And so proactively going out and getting to know people who work in different departments, different offices, who may share whether it's common work experiences, common personal experience, it doesn't really matter, but taking advantage of opportunities and get to know the people. Because the people are going to ultimately be more important than anything else in helping you get stuff done. And then the third thing, and this is advice I always give my fellows, is take on the junk work, right? So if you want to do something involved in a new area that you haven't been in before, or you want to make a change in a policy X, you have to show that you're able and willing to do the junky stuff to get the responsibility. So if you take on the work that nobody else wants to do and you do a good job at it, and you do it quickly, more and more responsibility and opportunity will come your way. And I think that's true in any bureaucracy. Everyone's looking for someone who's going to be motivated, self-motivated, take on the tasks, not complain, and get it done. And the more you can do that, the more people will look at you and go, oh yeah, now we really want to listen to what you have to say because we know that you're valuable. It is a talent issue. I think everyone's gonna need to look at, who are the people that you really want to be there? How are you going to support them to be there? And how are you going to get more people like them in the door to fill however many spots you have? And I think that could apply to any organization, but the human capital, I think, is our most important asset in this country. So how do you create environments that are going to not just attract those people, but allow them to be successful? On the entrepreneurial side of my life, I think a key question is going to be, how do you create environments that allow entrepreneurs to be sustainable? and sustainable, not just have sustainable ventures, but be sustainable human beings. One of the things that I see, because I work with a lot of millennials and through City Hall Fellows, is a real interest in not repeating the same patterns of some of their parents and folks older than them, of devoting quite so many hours to work, quite so many hours to home, having those clear lines when the lines are already blurred with technology. But that I'm not interested in working 40 hours a week for 20 years to get the cool opportunity. I want the cool opportunity now, and I want to do it collaboratively, and I want to do it differently. And why do you tell me I have to be here today? I mean, there's a lot of intergenerational conflict in workplaces because of that. Tons have been written about that. I think as part of that, there's going to be a generation that's also going to lead us forward and much more, and I hate the word work-life balance because I don't think balance is the right word, but lead us forward and a way of redefining what role work plays in the greater part of our life. And so I think entrepreneurs are a community where that is often very out of whack, and finding ways to make those sustainable as people, I think, is going to be critical to sustaining the changes that they're trying to have.